Have you ever wondered what happens in the first year of an Amish marriage when a young woman moves from her parents' household into her own and discovers, without a dishwasher, without a washing machine, without a grocery store run, exactly what it takes to keep a household running every single day? Skill that starts every morning. The first skill a new Amish wife must develop is one most people in the modern world have never needed: managing a wood or coal stove reliably, every morning without assistance. The fire must be started before the family wakes. In winter, this means rising at 4:30, coming downstairs into a cold kitchen and coaxing a fire from coals banked the night before or from fresh wood laid over kindling. If the fire does not start, the kitchen does not warm, breakfast does not happen on time. There is no thermostat, there is no backup system, the fire is either burning or it is not. Scratch cooking. A new Amish wife cooks 3 full meals from scratch every day without exception. Breakfast is on the table before the family leaves for morning chores, typically eggs, meat, potatoes, bread, and coffee. The noon meal is the largest of the day, a cooked meal of meat, vegetables, and potatoes that requires an hour or more of preparation. Supper, served before the final barn chores, is a second full meal, lighter but still produced from scratch. There is no delivery service, no frozen meal, no processed shortcut. Every item on every plate was produced by hands that knew what they were doing, and in the first year of marriage, those hands are still learning. Laundry. Monday is laundry day in an Amish household, and for a new wife, it is a full day's work. The wringer washing machine, powered by a gasoline engine or operated by hand, agitates each load in soapy water, then passes each item through rubber rollers that squeeze out the moisture before the clothing goes to the line. By mid-morning on a good Monday, the clothesline is full dresses, trousers, shirts, aprons, and towels, stretching in the wind to dry. In winter, the laundry freezes on the line and must be brought inside to finish near the wood stove. Tuesday is ironing day. Every item that comes off the line goes under the iron before it goes into the drawer. The full system takes the better part of 2 days every week and does not pause for weather, illness, or inconvenience. Bread baking. Friday is baking day in the Amish household, and bread is the centerpiece of what gets produced. A family of average size consumes 6 to 8 loaves of bread per week, bread that the wife bakes from scratch every Friday using flour, water, yeast, or sourdough starter, salt, and the accumulated knowledge of hundreds of previous baking sessions. The process begins the night before or early Friday morning when the dough is mixed and set to rise. By mid-morning, the loaves are shaped and rising again in their pans. By midday, the kitchen smells of baking bread and the loaves are coming out of the oven, one batch at a time. A new wife who has not yet learned to read her oven to know whether it runs hot or cool, where the temperature is consistent and where it is not, how long each loaf needs before it sounds hollow when tapped on the bottom, will produce uneven results until she has baked enough times to understand the specific behavior of the specific stove she is working with. No 2 stoves behave identically. The skill is not in following a recipe. The skill is in knowing the fire, the dough, and the timing well enough that the recipe is no longer necessary. Gardening. The kitchen garden is the Amish wife's primary food production responsibility. A plot of land covering half an acre or more, planted in spring, tended through summer, and responsible for supplying a significant portion of everything the household eats between June and the following April. A new wife who grew up Amish has been working in a garden since age 4 or 5, but working in her mother's garden and running her own are different things. Running her own means deciding what to plant and how much. It means calculating how many rows of beans will feed the family through winter, how many tomato plants will supply both fresh eating and sufficient canning stock. It means being in the garden every morning to check for pest damage, pull overnight weeds, and harvest whatever has reached peak ripeness since yesterday. If something is not harvested on time, it rots on the plant. If the weeds are not pulled consistently, they overtake the rows. The garden does not accommodate neglect. Canning. Canning season arrives in late summer and does not pause until the first frost ends the harvest. For a new Amish wife, This is the period when every other task compresses into the margins of the day because the garden is producing faster than it can be eaten, and everything not preserved immediately is lost. Green beans must be pressure canned within days of harvest. Tomatoes must be processed before they soften. Corn must be packed before it passes peak sweetness. Peaches, applesauce, pickles, beets, sauerkraut, jams, and relishes follow each other through the kitchen from July through October without a break. The target for a well-prepared household is 300 to 500 jars, enough to supply the family from October through the following spring. A new wife who has not yet developed the speed canning requires will find herself falling behind the harvest. The skill is not in following individual recipes. It is in managing the entire season as a system, knowing which crops to prioritize and how to keep the kitchen organized enough to process hundreds of jars without losing track. Every garment her family wears, every item of clothing worn by every member of an Amish household is made at home. The Ordnung specifies the style, cut, and color of every garment: the husband's broadfall trousers and suspenders, the wife's cape dress and apron, the children's clothing in the plain colors and practical cuts that the community requires. None of these items can be purchased from a store. All of them must be cut from fabric, sewn on the treadle machine, and finished by hand. A new wife who moves into her own household takes on full responsibility for the clothing production of that household from the day she arrives. She must assess what exists, what is worn out, what the children will grow out of before the next season, and what needs to be made before cold weather arrives. She must purchase fabric in sufficient quantity and in the correct colors and weights for each type of garment. She must cut each piece precisely enough that the finished garment fits correctly and lies flat at the seams. She must sew consistently enough that her work holds through the physical demands of farm and household labor. And she must do all of this on a treadle machine that she operates with her feet while guiding the fabric with her hands, producing in a single afternoon what a commercial garment factory produces in minutes, and doing so to a standard that will last through years of daily use rather than a single season. Chickens, eggs, and the morning barn check. The chickens are the new wife's primary animal responsibility, and they begin demanding her attention before breakfast every morning. The coop must be opened at first light. The feeders must be filled. The water must be checked and refreshed. The nesting boxes must be visited, and the eggs gathered before they cool or crack. In a household keeping 20 to 40 hens, a typical number for a family that eats eggs daily and sells or barters the surplus. This is a 15 to 20-minute task that happens every single morning without exception. 7 days a week, regardless of weather. Beyond the chickens, many Amish wives are involved in the morning barn routine alongside or in place of their husbands, particularly in the early months of marriage before children arrive, and when the husband is away for construction work or off-farm employment. Feeding the draft horses, checking the condition of the cattle, monitoring the health of any animals that showed signs of illness the previous day. These tasks require a baseline of animal knowledge that a new wife must develop quickly because the farm's animals do not pause their requirements while she is still learning. An animal that is not fed on time loses condition. A sick animal that is not identified early enough may die before a veterinarian can be reached. The barn check is not an optional morning activity. It is a daily assessment of the farm's most valuable working assets, and the wife who performs it must know enough to recognize when something is wrong. The Saturday system. Amish homes are kept to a standard of cleanliness that visitors consistently remark on, not because the Amish have better cleaning products or more efficient tools, but because the cleaning schedule is fixed, consistent, and not subject to negotiation with the competing demands of the week. The kitchen floor is swept after every meal and mopped at least once daily. Dishes are washed 3 times a day after breakfast, after the noon meal, and after supper. The surfaces are wiped down, the stove is cleaned. Saturday is the day the entire house is cleaned from top to bottom, every room, every floor, every surface, in preparation for the Sunday rest that the Amish observe strictly. No work is done on Sunday beyond the essential animal care that cannot be skipped. The house that goes into Sunday must already be cleaned because it will not be cleaned on that day. A new wife who lets the Saturday cleaning slide discovers on Sunday morning that the house she is sitting in with her family is the house she will sit in all day. Because the cleaning that was not done yesterday will not be done today. Beyond the weekly deep clean, the daily maintenance of an Amish household is physically demanding in a way that has no equivalent in a modern home with electric appliances. Sweeping a hardwood floor with a broom is slower than a vacuum cleaner. Mopping without a self-wringing mop on a kitchen used 3 times a day is a daily exercise in sustained physical effort. The standard does not lower because the tools are older. It is maintained by putting in more time. The management skill. The 9 skills described in this video are each demanding when considered individually. Taken together, running simultaneously, every day, across the full calendar of the year, they constitute a management challenge that has no direct equivalent in modern domestic life. A new Amish wife in her first year of marriage is not doing these things sequentially. She is not finishing the laundry before she starts the bread, finishing the bread before she goes to the garden, finishing the garden before she begins the canning. She is managing all of them at once, monitoring the bread rising while she hangs the laundry, checking the garden while the canning jars are processing, starting the noon meal while the morning's dishes are still drying. The organization required to do this without losing track of any single thread, without letting the bread overproof while she was in the garden, without forgetting the canner on the stove while she was at the sewing machine, is a skill in itself, distinct from any of the individual competencies it coordinates. It is the skill that determines whether all the other skills produce their intended results or whether they produce a household where things are perpetually half done and the system is perpetually behind. An Amish woman who has been watching her mother manage this coordination since childhood arrives at her own household with years of observation behind her. But observation is not practice. The first year of managing her own household with her own stove, her own garden, her own canner, her own schedule, teaches her things that no amount of watching could have communicated. She learns by doing it wrong and correcting, by falling behind and recovering, by discovering in October that the July canning target was set too low and adjusting for next year. The 10 skills described in this video were not taught to the Amish wife through any formal curriculum. There is no household management course in the Amish education system. There is no textbook for fire management or canning season planning or bread baking at scale. What exists instead is a system of transmission that has been operating continuously for 300 years. The mother who teaches the daughter by working alongside her from the time the daughter can stand at the kitchen counter. The grandmother who shows the granddaughter how the canner works during the first August. The granddaughter is old enough to help the neighbor woman who comes to assist during canning season and demonstrates through the speed and confidence of her own hands what competence in this task looks like when it has been practiced for 20 years. A new Amish wife arrives at her own household carrying the accumulated product of 15 or more years of this transmission. She is not starting from nothing. She is starting from a foundation that was laid in her parents' kitchen before she was 10 years old and added to every season since. What the first year of her own household teaches her is not the skills themselves, she already has those. What it teaches her is her own specific version of them, how her particular stove behaves, how her particular garden soil drains, how her particular family eats, and how much of everything they require. The skills are general. The household is specific. The first year is the process of adapting everything she learned in someone else's kitchen to the particular demands of her own, and doing so while the household depends on her getting it right.